Can a child carry the weight of ancient wisdom on his shoulders? That evening, Malala Yousafzai would learn the answer from a boy who did not look like a prophet, but spoke like one. The sun was just beginning to fall behind the Malibu hills, casting long shadows over the glass walls of Elon Musk's coastal residence. It wasn't the kind of place Malala was used to. It was modern to the point of feeling extraterrestrial, like it belonged more to Mars than Earth, a fact Elon probably took as a compliment. Malala had been invited to an intimate family gathering by a mutual friend of the Musk family. She came not for celebrity, but for the rare opportunity to discuss education with powerful people in an informal setting. But what she found instead wasn't Elon. It wasn't power or fame. It was X. She noticed him sitting alone on the edge of the infinity pool, his feet barely touching the surface. There was something about the way he stared into the water unblinking, still that made her pause. "Are you waiting for someone?" she asked gently, walking toward him with a soft smile. The boy, no more than 10, looked up with eyes that didn't belong to a child. They held the silence of galaxies. "I was hoping someone would ask me a question," he replied calmly, his voice steady, too composed for someone his age. Malala sat beside him, startled by his tone. "What kind of question?" she asked, curious now. "Something real," he answered. "Not about school or cartoons or who my father is. Something about meaning." She studied him, unsure if he was playing a role or if this was truly who he was. "Do you think about those things often?" she asked. He nodded. "All the time, especially at night. I wonder why humans can love so deeply yet hate with the same intensity. It's like both are built from the same fire, but one burns to warm and the other to destroy," he explained. Malala blinked, stunned by the metaphor. "That's a very powerful way to look at it," she said softly. He continued without hesitation. "I've been thinking about God lately. If he exists, and if he's truly love, then why does he allow us to hate? Why does he make room for it in us?" he asked, turning toward her. His question didn't feel rhetorical. It felt ancient, heavy, like it had been passed down from soul to soul through centuries. Malala hesitated. "Maybe it's because we can't understand love fully unless we also see what it's not," she replied thoughtfully. "That sounds like balance," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "Maybe it is. Maybe love without contrast becomes blind. Too easy, not sacred." He turned back toward the water, his reflection now blurred by the wind. "But if God is love," he said slowly, "then hate must be a betrayal of that love. Doesn't that make us all traitors in some way?" Malala wasn't sure how to respond. This wasn't a child having a philosophical moment. This was a child guiding one. And for the first time in many years, she didn't speak from experience or accolades. She listened. "I think I want to understand that betrayal better," the boy said. "I think it's the only way I'll ever understand what I'm meant to do." "What do you mean?" Malala asked gently. "I don't think I'm here to invent things," he replied, his voice softer now. "I think I'm here to feel things so deeply that they leave marks on the world." Malala looked at him, speechless. In all her years fighting for justice, for education, for peace, no one had ever said something that stopped her so entirely. And yet this boy had done it, without raising his voice or seeking attention. His name was X. But in that moment, he felt like something ancient, something vast, something unnamed. And the evening had only just begun. There was a quiet tension in the air, the kind that arrives just before someone says something they can't unsay. The sky had darkened over Malibu, stars beginning to stitch the heavens into something sacred. The soft hum of conversation from the adults inside faded behind the glass walls, leaving only the sound of waves below and the whispers of two minds caught in collision. X had remained still for a long moment, as though listening to something beyond the reach of Malala's hearing. Then, as if prompted by some internal signal, he spoke again. "I used to think love was a reward," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "Like if we behaved well enough, or thought purely enough, God would give it to us, like a prize." Malala turned slightly toward him, intrigued. "And what do you think now?" she asked gently. He smiled, not with joy, but with realization. I think love is a consequence of seeing too much, of knowing that we're not as different from our enemies as we want to believe, he explained. That's a hard truth, Malala replied, choosing her words carefully. Most people spend their whole lives trying not to see it. He nodded. But hiding from it doesn't erase it. I read once that hate is what we become when we can't bear to sit with pain any longer. I think maybe love is the opposite, not the absence of pain, but the willingness to carry it for someone else, he said, his eyes locked on the horizon. Malala exhaled slowly, absorbing the weight of his words. You're not wrong, she said. In my own life, I've seen people do both. Carry the pain of others and inflict it, sometimes in the same breath. But why? He asked, turning his gaze back to her. Why does God allow both to live inside us? If he's love, shouldn't he destroy the parts of us that hate? Malala thought for a moment. The answer wasn't simple, and it wasn't one she had given before. Maybe God doesn't want obedience as much as he wants understanding. And you can't truly understand love until you've confronted the things that threaten it, she answered softly. X looked down at his hands as though weighing something invisible between them. So we're tested? He asked. I think we're trusted, Malala replied. Trusted to choose love, even when it costs us. X was quiet, but the silence wasn't empty. It was burning with thought. Then maybe that's what makes love divine, he said finally. Not that it's perfect or easy, but that we keep choosing it, even when it doesn't feel safe, even when we've been hurt. There was something about the way he said it, like he wasn't just speaking about others, but about something deep within himself, something he didn't yet have the words for. Malala leaned back on her hands, watching the boy who had somehow turned the night into a sermon. You know, she said slowly, you remind me of someone I met once in a refugee camp, a child who had lost everything, yet still offered me a smile. It wasn't innocence, it was defiance. A kind of courage I didn't know children could have. X looked at her with curiosity. Did you ever forget that smile? He asked. No, Malala answered, shaking her head gently. Some things stay. He paused and then asked, do you think God smiles when we love the people we're supposed to hate? She looked into his eyes, almost afraid to blink. I think that's the only time he does, she replied. And in that moment, X closed his eyes, not in sleep, but in reverence, as though he had touched something sacred in the air between them. The boy wasn't playing with ideas anymore. He was wrestling with the universe. If God is love, then hatred is our rebellion. But what if even our rebellion is part of the design? The moon had risen high above them now, its reflection trembling in the stillness of the infinity pool. There was no one else around. The adults had disappeared into their own conversations, and the world felt quieter, as if it knew something important was about to be said. Malala sat with her arms wrapped loosely around her knees, no longer trying to guide the conversation. X had brought her into a space beyond age, beyond culture, beyond everything that used to feel solid. It was unsettling, but also somehow holy. After a long silence, she spoke, and her words did not come lightly. I've spent my life believing that love was the most powerful force in the world, she said, her voice low and deliberate, that it could conquer war, ignorance, even fear. But lately I've wondered something else. She turned her face toward the boy, her eyes searching. If God is love, then why do we hate? She asked. The question didn't hang in the air. It pierced it. X didn't answer immediately. He leaned forward, fingers gently skimming the surface of the water, watching the ripples scatter and vanish like thoughts too fragile to hold. Finally he spoke. Not quickly, not with certainty, but with gravity. I think we hate, he began, because we are terrified of being wrong about love. Malala's eyebrows pulled together. What do you mean? She asked gently. He looked up at her, his face calm but burning with meaning. Love demands vulnerability. It asks us to open doors we locked years ago, to forgive people who never apologized, to see ourselves in the very people we swore we would never become, he explained. He paused before continuing. But hate is armor. It's sharper, louder, safer. It lets us build walls instead of bridges. And sometimes, we'd rather feel powerful than exposed, he added. Malala nodded slowly, a chill rising on her arms. So hate protects us, she asked. X shook his head gently. Number it pretends to, but it doesn't protect. It isolates. It devours. It gives us the illusion of control when love demands we surrender. There was something ancient in his words, as if they had been carved from stone centuries ago and only now remembered. But if God is love, he continued, then he knows all this. He knows how fragile we are, how scared, and maybe he doesn't punish us for hating. Maybe he just waits. Waits for what? Malala asked quietly. For us to get tired, X answered. Tired of the emptiness. Tired of pretending that rage fills the same space love once did. Tired of mistaking justice for vengeance. Tired of running from the very thing we need most. He paused, then looked directly into her eyes. Maybe God is not love because it's easy. Maybe he's love because he refuses to stop loving us, even when we hate everything he stands for, he said. Malala couldn't speak. The wind had picked up slightly, as if stirred by the force of what had just been said. She closed her eyes for a brief second, the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. And then, slowly, she whispered, "That's the most beautiful answer I've ever heard." X smiled not proudly, not knowingly, but humbly, as though the answer didn't belong to him, but had simply passed through him on its way to someone else. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts below. Your perspective is valuable and might inspire others.